5 years ago, I recorded a talk as part of a health lesson here at this school, mainly because I knew girls that were going to be absent, and I didn't want them to miss the message that I had carefully prepared for them. 5 years and 5.5 million views later, from nearly every country in the world, I never knew the potential impact that one health talk could have. And I know that people have told me that it's changed their life, but it really changed my life. Now, I know you guys were all in 3rd grade when I recorded that message, which makes me feel super old. And this is now my 10th year teaching 8th graders and my last year teaching 8th graders. So here we are again with a new talk. It's a similar message, but such a different vantage point now, because I've learned a lot in the last 5 years. I've listened a lot. I've heard stories from girls and guys from all over the world. And now, since I'm older and wiser, now a father of 2 boys, we don't have a girl yet. I wrote this talk originally for my daughter someday. I'm still waiting for her, but I intend to deliver this message even better. So turn to your neighbor and say, let's go. The first thing that every 8th grade girl needs to hear is that you are beautiful. Hold up, wait for a minute. Couser, I saw the last talk. That was your first point in the last talk. You said this was a new talk. Is he just using his old notes? Somebody's about to click off right now. Just relax, hold on. Hold on. I've come to know that this is one of the most important things for a young girl to not only hear, but to know and believe about herself. And for the most part, it's not happening. See, I told you I've listened to stories from girls all over the world for the last 5 years. My email inbox and Instagram direct messages have been flooded from notes from all over. And one thing that I hear the most is, no one ever told me I was beautiful. Or, I don't believe that I'm beautiful. And this is across the board. Many people have said, I've never had a man in my life tell me I'm special. Tell me that I'm worth waiting for. Statistically, 42% of you are growing up in a home without a father. And many of you who have one, maybe you don't have the relationship, or you're not getting the validation or the affirmation that you desperately crave. One statistic I came across said that 76% of pregnant teenagers come from fatherless homes. What happens many times is that if you don't feel beautiful, you're not told that you're valuable, you don't believe that about yourself, you throw yourself into relationships, often give away something as special as sex, even just to receive momentary affirmation that you are lovely. I heard someone once say that guys will give love just to get sex, but girls will give sex just to get love. I began looking for negative self-talk in everyday life, and women all around me that I would hear talk poorly about how they looked. I noticed a prevailing dissatisfaction. I hear women with straight hair wishing that it was curly, and women with curly hair wishing that it was straight. Tall women cursing how tall they are, and yet shorter women wishing that they were taller. Skinny girls calling themselves bony, but bigger girls wishing that they were thinner. And as I prepared for this talk, my spidey senses for this negative self-discussion were at an all-time high, and my head was spinning everywhere. I was hearing this kind of negative self-image. Every race, every age, every demographic, every marital status. I came home after going on a date with my wife. We were talking about this topic. We were sitting on the couch, and I turned to her and I said, "But you feel beautiful, right?" Fully expecting her to say, "Of course I do," because she is incredibly beautiful inside and out. We've been married for 12 years, and I've told her thousands of times. But do you want to know what she said? She said, "Sometimes. Sometimes. Sometimes." I nearly lost my mind. I said, please explain. Help me understand. Sometimes? What the... The one woman in the world I try to build up the most and encourage the most only feels beautiful sometimes. She said, "Well, I mean, if I've showered or combed my hair, or if I'm wearing a really cute outfit, Maybe I've done my makeup. I might feel beautiful, but not all the time. She said, it's not my default setting. I realized just then that it's not that women aren't beautiful inside and out. It's that most women are way too freaking critical of themselves. I did some more research on the topic. Dove Beauty did extensive surveys and found that only 4% of women around the world, 4%, would consider themselves beautiful. And only 11% of young girls, teenage girls, would even feel comfortable describing themselves as beautiful. But yet 80% of all women agree that every woman has something about her that is beautiful, but they fail to see it within themselves. Some of you are saying, what's the problem with this? What's the big deal? Who cares? I'm hard on myself. It helps keep me in the gym. It forces me to try to look good. Why is that a bad thing? That's not the issue. The issue is that if you believe about yourself that you need to do something extra just to be beautiful, just to be set apart, just to be worthy, you are essentially devaluing who you are at a baseline level. Unshowered, unmakeuped, uneyelashed, without the Spanx, without the blowout, with a full sweatpants snuggie. You need to believe that who you are as an individual at a baseline is beautiful, is special, is worthy of someone's best, worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth standing up for, worth speaking up for, even if you're not ready to walk and you look like you're ready to walk down the runway. Worth protecting, worth honoring, worth treating like a princess. Why does beauty need to be contingent upon the makeup, the outfit, the waist size, or the skin tone? What if the cultural definition of beauty is wrong? What if tall, thin, tanned, and toned with perfect teeth is not the definition of being beautiful? Call me crazy, but I think that your uniqueness is beautiful. We got every girl in the world running around trying to be special, trying to be set apart, trying to be different, trying to be unique. And if you'd stop for a second and realize that you already are. Your individuality is beautiful. Your differences are beautiful. Your quirks and the weird things that make you, you are beautiful. Your pain, yes, your pain, and the specific set of circumstances that you've gone through in your life is beautiful. Can you imagine if you reminded yourself, if you talked to yourself like this, and you reminded yourself of this truth daily or hourly? Because I'm speaking truth here, which means that most of you lie to yourselves all day long. But what we do in our lives is often we lie to ourselves so much that our lies become truer than the truth. We learn to love our lies, realizing that self-pity can be its own form of comfort. For some of you, it's easier for you to reject yourself in advance than to put yourself out there confidently for the potential rejection of other people. It's like he's reading my mind. I see women all around me putting themselves in the prison of perfection in their own heads. Some of you are prisoners to this perfect ideal. Statistically, 89% of you, growing to 96% as you become older, believe that you don't fit into the mold of what it means to be beautiful. Because all around you in the media, you are told and you are sold that you aren't enough. You aren't. You're told that. You're told that in your social media. You're told that in your movies. You're told that everywhere around you that you aren't. You aren't. You aren't enough on your own. You aren't pretty enough. You aren't tall enough. You aren't smart enough. You aren't tan enough. You aren't toned enough. You aren't enough. And if you don't get that from the media, you get that from each other. That's right. 8th grade girls are straight up vicious to each other. And do you want to know why? I learned why. Okay, I've been doing this for 10 years now. Do you want to know why? Do you? Okay, 6 of you. Awesome. When you hold each other in these prisons of perfection and you criticize and you judge and you exclude each other, it gives you a momentary vacation from the prison you hold yourself in. You are mean to others often when you have failed to fully accept yourself. And for many of you, those people who won't accept you, the ones who you are desperately trying to impress, they don't accept you because they have rejected themselves. I'm going to set somebody free here right now who is trying to impress everybody around them. You need to recognize and realize that if they give you the affirmation that you are seeking, it would only be reminding themselves of the love and acceptance that they withhold from themselves. The culture for girl-on-girl warfare needs to change. Can you imagine? It's going to take some imagination here, okay? Can you imagine if you guys encouraged each other? You built each other up as a culture, as a community with your words, had each other's backs and not to stab each other in it, built each other up with their words rather than slicing the throats of the very people who, like you, are desperate for kindness, longing for approval, hoping that you notice them, wishing you'd invite them to lunch. So much emphasis is nowadays is put on how poorly guys treat girls. And I'm not saying that that's not a ridiculously huge issue. I'm doing my best to fight that battle in a different stage, in a different place. But what about how you treat each other? What about how you treat yourself? See, some of you give guys permission to treat you poorly based on the example you set for how you treat each other or how you treat and talk about yourself. Now, you may live in a culture that says that you aren't enough, and some of you, admittedly, might have helped create a culture that tells other girls that they aren't enough. But I want to remind you of something that you have forgotten. You are. You are enough. You are smart enough. You are pretty enough. You are strong enough. You are weirdly, uniquely you enough. And this school needs you. This community needs you. This world needs you. Not some counterfeit, not some knockoff, not some Hollywood imitation. We need you. Your story, your pain, your perspectives, your ideas, your opinions, your struggles, your failures, your unique, beautiful story. See, you might feel unimportant. You might feel unspecial or insignificant, but I know what you don't. The incredibly complex and unique story of your life has been put together of many different scenes. Scenes where some were so amazing and happy and full of joy and contentment, and some that were so dark or are so dark that it's scary to even think about them, or worse, talk about them. Your complex compilation of different scenes of your life are creating a beautiful story, but you might be sitting there saying, it doesn't feel beautiful right now. But often it doesn't when you're in the middle of it. Some of you can be even tempted to stop your story because of how dark the scene is that you're living. It's becoming more and more prevalent. One of the fastest growing demographics for suicide is teenage girls in the last few years. I read an article the other day that described this tremendous upswing in suicide. It discussed the correlation between suicide rates in teenage girls, an increase in social media use, and cyberbullying. Can I just take a side note to say, I fully think you would be a healthier person with a 30-day social media break. 30 days. Take it. I can't tell you, I've challenged so many people to take a break from social media. And you know what the messages I've got from people were? My followers missed me. I snapped my streaks. This is terrible. I hate my life even worse. No, that didn't happen. It was a great impression, but it didn't happen, right? What I heard was, I feel free. I feel free. Free from this culture of comparison that is killing us, literally. It's also killing your contentment, any shot you have to be happy with yourself. More and more beautiful, amazing, full of potential young women are stopping their story in the midst of a dark scene without ever being able to see that these scenes that punch us in the gut, that bring us trembling to our knees, can and will be the scenes in your life that produce the most strength. That someday, everybody say someday. Someday. Not today, but someday, the choreography of the scenes of your life will build your abilities to be the help that someone else needs. I read the other day that even the most introverted people on the planet will have an impact of over 10,000 lives in the course of their lifetime. See, we need your story. We need your pain. We need your perspectives, your opinions, your creativity, your sweetness, your compassion. And you need to show up for every scene of your story. Many of you feel pressure or temptation to skip scenes of your story, wishing away critical times of your life for that someday. Many of you feel pressure to skip a scene in your life called singleness. You might feel incredible pressure to be dating or to be physical, to act or to date like an adult. I see 14-year-olds walking around this school looking like they're 25, with a laundry list of exes to rival a Hollywood celebrity. You have such a short and precious time to still be a kid, to be single, to focus on the foundation of you that desperately needs your love and attention. See, a relationship will never strengthen the foundation you neglected. A relationship will only expose the weakness you failed to address in a season called singleness. I can't tell you how many people I've heard from in the last 5 years simply saying, thank you. Thank you for reassuring me that I don't need to be dating, that I don't need to be sleeping around, that I don't need to be giving away my kisses, that I don't need to feel like a weirdo for not doing that. See, when we wish away or speed through seasons of our life, we miss critical lessons needing to be learned for the next season to come. Some of you have never been alone long enough to learn to love yourself. You have always relied on someone else's love or affection to make up for what you weren't doing for yourself, for what you weren't saying to yourself. You skipped a whole season. See, your relationships and your marriage someday will be only as good as your singleness. Whoever you are single, you will bring into every relationship you will ever have. In my last talk, I closed by bringing out this paper heart as a symbol of the fact that sexual behavior is powerful and it should be considered before acting out in a moment what you may drag for a lifetime. But I want to focus less on what not to do or what behavior to avoid, but instead explaining what deep down I really feel is the heart of the issue. Terrible pun, I know. Thanks. I want to talk less about the symptoms and more about the source. See, our heart represents our innermost self, the core of who we are. The word core in Latin actually means heart. See, our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors, we act out of what we believe about ourselves deep down at our core. And if you couldn't tell from the previous 20 minutes, I believe the main issue plaguing the 8th grade girl, or all humans really, is an issue of value, of worth. When I met my wife, when I was 19 years old, I had never met a girl with such high value of herself. She had a high assessment of her own value, much to the credit of her father and her family and herself, and the work that she did to appreciate herself and her own unique qualities during her season called singleness. She directed our dating relationship and our engagement With such purpose and such future-minded thinking, it revolutionized what I believed at the time. And she's here today. I told her that I wouldn't make her speak, but I am going to make you come down here. Give her a round of applause. She's a little shy, a little nervous. Hi. Megan, I just want to thank you in front of all of these awesome girls and anybody who decides to watch this online. I want to thank you for showing me what it means to value yourself and for valuing me. See, you set such high standards and high boundaries for our relationship and our engagement that you showed me that when you pursue a person in a relationship rather than pursuing the pleasure in a relationship, you build a foundation. Everybody say foundation.
Foundation.
A foundation that even 12 years of marriage can't crack, right? That's a long time, okay? It's like almost longer than you were alive, okay? 12 years of marriage. That two crazy little boys, well, one of them's crazy. One of them just kind of lays there. He's like 2 months old. But that two little boys can't crack. That 10 years of teaching teenagers stress can't shake and can't quake. Thank you for changing my life and for inspiring and changing the lives of millions of young girls around the world. Thank you. I don't know, do we hug? Feels awkward just like, all right, see ya. That kind of personal value is exceedingly difficult if you have suffered from abuse of one kind or another, especially sexual abuse. As we've seen play out on the world's stage, especially in the last few years, this kind of abuse against women is all too common. 1 out of 5 statistically. And I don't have the words to heal the hurt of what someone else did. But I do want to say that despite how you may feel, your value has not changed. See, we often live and act out of our own deficit, out of our own assessment of how we feel we should be treated because of what we've been through or how we've been treated in the past. But I've come here to tell you today that value is not a feeling. It's a fact. Many of you have way too low of an appraisal of your value, of your worth. The fact of the matter is you are valuable despite what they did, despite what they said, despite how they left or how they treated you. Your value has not changed. If anything, it's increased. Value is an assessment based on rarity and uniqueness. The more unique and personalized experiences that you go through in your life, for the good and for the bad, the deeper that value gets. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good thing that you were hurt by other people. Please don't get me wrong. But what I've come to know in my own life is that oftentimes the worst moments of our entire life become our greatest opportunities to help and to heal other people. And if you can live in light of this realization, and if you can tattoo value at the core of who you are, every relationship you will ever have will be benefited, starting with the relationship with yourself. See, when you tattoo value at the core of who you are and what you believe about yourself, you begin to give yourself a fighting chance in the storms that this life will bring you. See, hurt people will often look to hurt other people. There will always be people in your life and your future who will attack your value or underassess your worth. People in relationships who will try to get you to compromise on your standards. And if your assessment of yourself or your worth or your future is too low, oftentimes they will win. But if you can get up every day and do battle fighting from a position of value rather than fighting for the approval and acceptance and validation of everyone else. Look out, because you will be unstoppable. I hope that today, everybody say today. Today. I hope that today marks a day where you make a shift in how you talk about yourself, in how you think about yourself, in how you treat yourself, and how you treat each other. Even if it's just a tiny shift. I hope you are forever different, even in just the slightest way. Stop comparing. Stop criticizing that beautiful, amazing, valuable girl that looks back at you in the mirror, and start appreciating. Love you guys. Thank you.
May we never forget, we are beautiful.
We are enough.
We are worth fighting for, waiting for, living for.
Share this message. Send it to a friend.
Start becoming part of a solution in your own story.
Stop comparing and start appreciating.